Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Apil. Here are some stories making rounds beyond the continent. We begin the news in the U.S., where President Donald Trump has warned Moscow of potential tariffs on its allies if Russia does not move toward ending the war in Ukraine. The warning comes as part of a new agreement with NATO, which includes a major boost in military support for Kyiv. Under the deal, the United States will supply billions of dollars worth of military equipment to NATO, with rapid distribution to Ukrainian forces on the battlefield. The initiative aims to increase pressure on Russia while reinforcing NATO's defense commitments. Trump's stance signals a shift toward using economic measures alongside military aid to influence the conflict. The development adds new urgency to diplomatic efforts as the war continues to strain global alliances and security frameworks.
We thought we had 4 deals, Howard, right, with Putin. Somehow they end and we get off the phone. Oh, that was a very nice conversation. And then he sends missiles into buildings someplace. I say, what was that all about? So anyway, so we're going to be doing that with NATO, and it's fully approved, fully done. We'll send them a lot of weapons of all kinds, and they're going to deliver those weapons immediately to the site. Instead, we have a bad Fed chairman, really bad. If he would lower the rates, and I tried being nice to the guy, it doesn't help. He's like a knucklehead. No, he's a knucklehead. A stupid guy. He really is. We should be at 1%. We should be less than 1%. I think Switzerland is the lowest at like 0.5%. We should be lower, because without us, there's no world. I don't want to sound overly aggressive, but without us, you have no world.
Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister says Moscow hopes its trade partners will not abandon their independent policy. Now, this comes after President Trump's warning to slap severe tariffs on Russia's allies if it fails to reach a deal with Kyiv in 50 days. Speaking during a press conference after the Shanghai Cooperation Organization ministerial meeting in China, Lavrov explains that Russia wants to understand what motivated Trump to make the warning.
Поэтому мы, конечно же, как сказал Дмитрий Песков, мы хотим понять, что стоит за этим заявлением. 50 дней, было раньше и 24 часа было, и 100 дней было. Мы все это проходили и действительно хотим понять, чем движим президент Соединенных Штатов. Ясно, что он находится под огромным, я бы сказал, неприличным давлением Европейского Союза и нынешнего руководства НАТО, которые бесцеремонно поддерживают требования Зеленского продолжать накачивать его современным, в том числе наступательным оружием, за счет все большего и большего ущерба налогоплательщикам в западных странах. Да, но наши торговые контрагенты, они слышат то, что прозвучало, но едва ли они могут сейчас прогнозировать свои действия. У них есть обязательства, международные обязательства, и зная этих наших партнеров, я не вижу, как они могут отказаться от своей независимой политики, от политики соблюдения договоренностей, достигаемых и по двусторонним каналам, и в многосторонних форматах.
So, to discuss this, I'm joined by global affairs analyst Ejike Okpa. Ejike, welcome, good evening. Thank you very much for joining. Ejike, how could Trump's tariff threats influence the behavior of Russia's trade partners, especially those within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but, this tariff business is usually you throw it out there, and then somebody or the nations that feel they're going to be impacted are going to, either say, to hell with you, excuse my expression, or hey, let's talk. Obviously, Russia can do a whole lot if America is going to put 100% tariff on them. But Russia has always figured out how to go around those things, and they're still standing. Maybe this is just something that needed to be said in order to get Putin and his people to the table and let's talk. So again, international politics and diplomacy is usually somebody says something and then somebody else reacts. So it's not unusual for Trump to say what Trump has said, and it's not unusual for Russia to say we are an independent country, we don't have to deal with this, But at the end of the day, there's always, behind the scenes, activities going on. There's always the public side of things, to get everybody all riled up. But behind the scenes, people shaking hands, toasting and saying, hey, let's talk, let's get this thing over with.
What does Lavrov's appeal to independent policy suggest about Russia's diplomatic strategy amid growing Western pressures then?
Well, independent is independent. You can't have any actual meaning to what that means. That we're independent. Our partners are independent. Every nation, is independent, so to speak. But most nations still have to depend on another nation. When you look at comparative advantages, that's why we do trade. No nation can do it on its own. So, independent policies is, what that is until you engage somebody else. If the world is just one country, then they are dependent. But as long as we have the number of countries we have in the world, there is some level of interdependency. That does not erode the fact that you are still an independent sovereign nation.
Okay, and how might Trump's 50-day ultimatum to Russia impact the timeline then? Or maybe even the direction of negotiations?
Well, when you do that, you give a timeline. Just like somebody wants to evict you from your thing, I'm giving you this number of days or time in order for you to do this. So 50 days, the time is ticking. We're going to see what Russia is going to want to do. 50 days in the life of international politics is an eternity. In the sense that, okay, fine, first of all, you say it as a shock treatment. And then after the shock, it's okay, what do we do? Do we accept, or do we revolt, or do we reject, or do we go back and say, hey, let's talk? It's always room to talk. So 50 days is enough time. And then if they start talking, they say, okay, fine, I need additional time. But that's what that 50 days is supposed to do. I'm giving you 50 days to come to table with me so we can resolve this matter. Or, then if you don't do anything within the 50 days, then I'm going to do what I said I was going to do.
So, HK, with the threats to Russia, what would any country that continues to do business economically with Russia have? What risks would they be putting themselves into?
Well, if Russia is their lifeline, if Russia is their bloodline, then if Russia is nipped or Russia is sort of shunted, then anybody depending on Russia is going to get affected. So those people that depend on Russia might look at, hey, if our trading partner is going to be in a situation they are in, then we look for an alternative way to trade, or we're going to prevail on Russia to go ahead and do what is needed so that they too will not suffer. So that's how these things work. It's a system, it's sort of a systemic thing. You hit one and then everybody else that are part of that one that you have hit is going to get some impact. It's like a wave. When you drop that pebble wave, then it carries forth, and then that forth is going to be whoever else is around that, the impact is going to get affected.
Well, AGK, I want to say thank you very much for your always expert opinion on these kinds of matters. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, 2 people were killed in New Jersey on Tuesday following flash flooding in the northeastern United States that caused travel chaos. A flood warning remained in effect until Tuesday morning for parts of New Jersey, while the slow-moving summer storm was expected to continue showering the mid-Atlantic region into the middle of the week. Local officials said 2 people died when their vehicle was swept into a river in Plainfield, a city in New Jersey, and emergency responders at the scene were unable to save them. Meanwhile, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, while touring flood damage in Berkeley Heights, has warned residents to stay alert.
The White House has been in touch this morning, which is a good sign, and we will be assessing, led by Dan Kelly, who's been on the clock since Superstorm Sandy, well before my time. We'll be working with counties and communities to assess level of damage. We're always trying to figure out whether or not we meet certain federal thresholds. It's far too early to tell, but this clearly was a significant weather event. But we're in one of these sort of high humidity, high temperature, high storm intensity patterns right now that we've been in before, but it feels like events like last night, again, not just in New Jersey, but as a general matter, are coming more frequently with more intensity. So I would just say that, therefore,
In North America, a SpaceX capsule carrying 4 astronauts from India, Poland, Hungary, and the United States splashed down off California early on Tuesday, completing Axiom Mission 4 after 20 days in space. Commander Peggy Whitson, a former NASA astronaut, led pilot Shubhanshu Shukla of India and mission specialist Sławosz Uznanski Wiśniewski and Tibor Kapu from Hungary. Now, this marks the first ISS mission in over 40 years for the 3 nations. The crew spent 22.5 hours returning to Earth after unlocking on Monday, bringing back over 60 science experiments from space station. Now let's head to Europe, where we tell you that Spanish police have arrested 10 people over rare anti-migrant unrest that rocked the town of Torre Pacheco. 3 nights of violence erupted on Friday after a 68-year-old man told local media 3 youth of North American, or rather North African origin, had beaten him up in the street of the southeastern town. Torre Pacheco Mayor Pedro Angel Roca said that social media had inflamed clashes involving non-residents that saw street equipment broken and car windows smashed. The central government's representatives in the Murcia region, Mariola Guevara Cava, had authorized and had identified 80 people, many of them with criminal records for violence. And a British judge has sentenced 2 men found guilty of felling one of the UK's most iconic trees to more than 4 years in prison each. The tree stood for nearly 200 years next to Hadrian's Wall, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in northern England, and its felling sparked national outrage. Former friends Daniel Graham, 39, and Adam Carruthers, 32, were jailed for 4 years and 3 months for chopping down the famed tree.
I'm confident that a major factor in your offending that night was sheer bravado. Felling the tree in the middle of the night and in the middle of the storm gave you some sort of thrill, as did the media coverage of your crimes over the following days. You revelled in the coverage, taking evident pride in what you had done, knowing that you were responsible for the crime which so many people were talking about. Whether bravado and thrill-seeking provide the complete explanation for what you did, I do not know. However, as I say, I'm quite sure that you are both equally culpable for the destruction of the tree and for the damage to the wall. For those who live in Northumberland, or who love this county, the tree had become a landmark, a symbol of the beauty of its untamed...
Let's go on a break now, and when we return, Russian mother, 2 daughters rescued from Gokarna cave. I'll bring you the details in just a bit. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news continues in Europe, where a minister has revealed that thousands of Afghans who worked with the UK government and their families were brought to Britain in a secret program after a 2022 data breach put their lives at risk. Defence Minister John Hurley unveiled the scheme to Parliament after the UK High Court on Tuesday lifted a super gag order banning reports of the event. Hurley said in February 2022, a spreadsheet containing the names and details of almost 19,000 Afghans who had asked to be relocated to Britain was accidentally leaked by a UK official just 6 months after the Taliban seized Kabul.
In February 2022, 10 months after the then Defence Secretary Ben Wallace introduced the Afghan relocations and assistance policy, 6 months after the fall of Kabul, a defence official emailed an Arab caseworking file outside of authorised government systems. ARAP, as the House knows, is the resettlement scheme that this country established for Afghan citizens who worked for or with our UK armed forces over the combat years of Afghanistan. Now, this official mistakenly believed that they were sending the names of 150 applicants. However, the spreadsheet in fact contained personal information associated to 18,714 Afghans who had applied either to the ex gratia or the Arat scheme on or before the 7th of January 2022. It contained names and contact details of applicants and, in some instances, information relating to applicants' family members. And in a small number of cases, Mr. Speaker, the names of members of Parliament, senior military officers and government officials were noted as supporting the application. This was a
Russian woman and her 2 young daughters have been rescued by the Indian police from a remote hill cave in southern India. The woman, identified as Nina Kutina, 40 years old, and her daughters, 6 and 4 years old respectively, had been living in the cave for about 2 weeks, meditating, practicing yoga, and cooking on a wood fire stove, surrounded by photos of Hindu deities adorning the forest cave walls. Kutina had entered India on a business visa in 2016, which expired in 2017. She later re-entered over staying visa. Deportation procedures are now underway with help from the Russian embassy. Still in Europe, the UN warned on Tuesday that the West Bank is experiencing a surge in mass displacements to levels not witnessed in nearly 60 years, since Israel's occupation of Palestine territory started. At a press briefing in Geneva, the UN said a military operation by Israel in the northern part of the occupied territory since January has led to the displacement of tens of thousands, raising fears of possible illegal annexation or ethnic cleansing under international law.
Israeli settlers and security forces have intensified killings, attacks and harassment of Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, in the past weeks. This includes the demolition of hundreds of homes and forced mass displacement of Palestinians, contributing to the ongoing consolidation of annexation of West Bank territory by Israel in violation of international law. Since the launch of Israel's Operation Iron Wall in the north of the West Bank earlier this year, about 30,000 Palestinians remain forcibly displaced. Israeli forces have shot live ammunition at unarmed Palestinians, including those attempting to go back to their homes in the refugee camps of Jenin, Tul Karam, and Nur Shams.
In the Middle East, Cyprus on Tuesday commemorated the 51st anniversary of the failed coup that disrupted the constitutional order and prompted Turkey's invasion 5 days later, resulting in the division of the country. The coup, orchestrated on July 15, 1974 by Greece's military junta in collaboration with the EOKAB paramilitary forces in Cyprus, targeted the democratically elected president Archbishop Macarius III, but failed to achieve its objectives. Sirens sounded across Cypriot cities at 8:20 a.m. Marking the exact time the coup began, President Christodouloulides attended the ceremony, the service at the St. Constantine and Helen Church, to honor those killed defending the constitutional order. And off to Asia now, we tell you that Beijing has opposed Japan's comments after its defense minister said that China's intensifying military activities could seriously impact its security. Japan had said that China's intensifying military activities could seriously impact its security, citing the first confirmed incursion by a Chinese military aircraft into its airspace in an annual threat assessment. The Defense Ministry said in its white paper that China was ramping up its activities in the entire region surrounding Japan.
日本新版的防务白皮书抱持错误的对华认知，无理干涉中国内政，炒作所谓中国威胁。中方对此表示强烈不满和坚决反对，已向日方提出严正交涉， 台湾是中国领土不可分割的一部分，台湾问题纯属中国内政，如何解决台湾问题是中国人自己的事。
And that's all on Beyond the Continent this evening. Do remember you may send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp numbers on your screen now. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.